Spotlight, as per tradition, every single Friday on the Journal. Because, look, across many African communities, initiation schools have long marked the transition from childhood or boyhood, as it were, to adulthood. They have traditionally been spaces where young people learn about themes of identity, responsibility, respect, and their place within the community. Yet, as society begins to change and shift, public debate and public discourse is opening up, and there's an increased focus on the safety and accountability when it comes to these particular institutions. Many are asking what role the institutions are playing in today's society. So let's have the conversation. Let's unpack, the roots of initiation schools and the practice, under African cosmology and what it means in today's world, as it were. Mkhulu Zulu is joining me in his capacity as the founder of Kwa-Nobamba Family Spiritual and Mental Wellness Institute. So, Mkhulu, welcome to the show. Thank you for the time.
Sawubona gogo.
Sawubona. I think for context, it would be wonderful if you could really help us tap into the history of initiation schools. Where does the tradition come from and what inherently it existed to do back in the day?
Look, this is a very old tradition, especially in Africa, which was meant to assist mold boys into manhood. Many African countries do practice this tradition. Mm-hmm. And, it is not just a cultural tradition, but it is also a spiritual, a way of raising boys, So I think we, as we evolve and as things look like they are changing, somehow we contaminated the culture and we started using it for wrong reasons. Because if you look at what is happening today, you will realize that it is no longer followed to the latter. It's no longer followed in a proper way that it was done before. The reasons and the meaning of this culture is very deep. It's deeper than just saying it's part of my culture, because it involves issues of spirituality. Hence, it involves the family. It starts from within the family. You will realize that in some families they don't undergo this ritual, and in other families they do, and for spiritual reasons. So it differs with different families, and it differs also with different nations. So it has a serious history. I mean, that even the Jewish people do have this culture, even if they are doing it in a different way. So before young people enter the stage of adulthood, there must be some rituals that are done to help them cross over, from being from childhood to either when it's boys to manhood, when it's girls to motherhood and all that. So every single nation will have their own way of practicing this culture. And in Africa, it is known that the boys will then go to the mountain, and a lot of things do happen there, including education that is meant to mold them into becoming better men, So many people who have not been to the mountain, who have not experienced this, will always dismiss it based on what they see on the news, on social media and all that. The issue of boys dying there and all that is very painful. And also it will agitate people to want to say this culture is barbaric, this culture is old, it must change and all that, but it's not as easy as that, because it's not just a cultural practice, it's a ritual, it's a spiritual practice as well.
Absolutely, and thank you for noting that there's a sacred element to the work, and preserving it in certain ways is very important. But I mean, let's unpack the context of culture versus tradition. What should shift? What should change? What needs to happen? Because we know that culture constantly and rapidly evolves, in response to whatever it is that's
Yes.
going on, the technology, the global influences, the environments that we find ourselves in. However, when we look at, the context of tradition, there are specific practices and rituals within culture that are intentionally designed to be resistant of change. So let's unpack that. Let's look at initiation as an example of that resistance. Are we able to look at the institutions of initiation for both boys and girls as ones that can evolve and meet the expectation of a new generation? Or is it either we do it or we don't altogether?
Yes. So for anything to become a cultural practice, it starts as a custom, within a family, and then tested and then accepted in a particular community, and then it becomes a tradition. And when it has passed its spiritual tests, it then becomes and accepted by a nation. Then it becomes a culture. So those are stages of moving towards some approving something or understanding something as culture. So it becomes a cultural practice of a particular nation, which means it has gone through the stages of it being tested, especially spiritually, to make sure that it does not create problems. It does not also create curses. So those are the processes in which, by the time we call it culture, it's because it has been accepted by that particular nation as their culture or as part of their culture. So and many people mix these things. Tradition does not compete with culture. Things become culture because they are traditional practices that have been accepted by the whole nation, or maybe in isiZulu you would say in a particular iskoti, or so, but they have to go through those processes or those spiritual tests, so we should not confuse that. But it starts as a custom, which could be something that a ritual that is practiced by a particular family, and in our African culture, it's things starts within families and they are adopted within isikoti, which means the royal families accept them and test them with the nation, with the tribe or the nation, and then they get accepted as a part of our culture.
Okay.
Then that is why we then say it's a cultural practice.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, look, we're here to be educated. Okay. Thank you very much for the context as we explore the deeper purpose of initiation schools, the values that they seek to pass on, and what their future could look like in modern Africa. I'm in conversation with Mkhulu Zulu. He is the founder of Kwa-Nobamba Family Spiritual and Mental Wellness Institute. We're going to continue the conversation looking at values and life lessons after this.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
E a recente aprovação da nova lei de combate à disseminação de informações falsas na Guiné-Bissau abriu um intenso debate público sobre os limites entre o combate à desinformação e a salvaguarda da liberdade de expressão. O diploma aprovado pelo Conselho Nacional de Transição pretende reforçar o combate ao cibercrime, às burlas digitais e à propagação de conteúdos falsos nas redes sociais, prevendo inclusive penas agravadas para casos com dimensão internacional. Nesta entrevista com António Nhanga, bastonário da Ordem dos Jornalistas da Guiné-Bissau, analisámos as implicações políticas, sociais e mediáticas da nova legislação.
É um pretexto que o comando militar arranjou para poder silenciar a imprensa ou silenciar as vozes mais críticas que pode haver no país. Essa é a grande verdade sobre esse assunto. Não é a questão de liberdade ou a questão de combater a fake news, mas a forma de silenciar as vozes críticas que existe no país, quer na imprensa, quer nas redes sociais.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Big continent, bigger conversations. Rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Sepiso Makwetla. 6 till 9 a.m. on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Look closer. Listen deeper. This is The Journal with Mosito on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us for our cultural spotlight here on The Journal with Mkhulu Zulu. And we really are looking at, initiation schools in modern societies and, shaping and changing cultures that we find ourselves with, and this global conversation about their place in modern society. Mkhulu, I'd like to ask you, when we look beyond physical rites of passage, let's talk about,
Yes.
perhaps look at the values and the life lessons and responsibilities that are taught to young people through initiation and initiation schools.
Yes. So I'm going to try and take it from where I believe we are losing the plot. You know, the initiation culture is more than just the physical initiation. It's the reason why it is sacred. It's because it is assisting us as a nation to be able to groom young boys into the transition to manhood. Where we are losing it, and I hear that many people will then blame the surgeons and say, yeah, no, bogus surgeons and all that. Yes, there's a lot of bogus initiation schools with bogus surgeons. Well, that is the issue of criminality, the issue of money. That where there's money that can, an opportunity to make money, there will always be a lot of criminality. That is why that part needs to be policed properly, and the policies of every country or province should actually make sure they prevent such things. But then here is the point that we are not talking about as a nation, that because this is also a spiritual matter which involves the family. Most of our young boys are being raised by single mothers without the involvement of their fathers. And now when you go to provinces like your Eastern Cape, your Limpopo, like, your Mpumalanga, where this culture is very...
Oh no, the network just decided to network in the middle of a very important conversation. Perhaps let's take a 20-second break and see if we can reconnect with Kwa-Nobamba Zulu.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Look closer. Listen deeper. This is The Journal with Mosito on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
All right, we're back with Kwa-Nobamba Zulu back on the line. Mkhulu, I don't want to interrupt you. I think you were still mid-sentence when the network broke.
Yes.
I'd like for you to just continue.
Yes. No, I think it was a phone call. I don't know how to switch off the phone calls when they come in.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I was saying we are missing the spiritual part of it, where the involvement of the family, especially the bloodline family, somehow it's being ignored, or because of the challenges of boys, these children being raised by single mothers in most cases, which is a big problem. That you find that a single mother has a boy, a child, and when that time comes, where this boy now has to go through the transition, you find that only the mother now is involved and the father is not involved. So there are rituals that families need to do before this boy is sent away to the initiation. In most cases, you'll find that in other families, boys just they go there alone without the rituals being done, or the mothers not knowing exactly what needs to be done. Sometimes the uncles try to help, but they're not doing it in a correct way.
Mm.
Because in isiZulu, when I explain it, ingane iyacelelwa ekhaya ukuthi so that before they leave, there's a ritual that needs to be done, which is meant for protection as well. To make sure that the time that they're going to spend outside there in the bushes, they are protected, spiritually, and the family has done everything right. So in most cases, you would find that we are too casual about these things, and we send these boys there, and the proper rituals are not done. And when they get there, they then have they experience so many complications, and potentially you find that they become the weakest link there, and they are the ones who become the victims and all that. So it
Mm.
is 50-50. We talk about the bogus surgeons, but at the same time, we must talk about the families not doing the right things, the things that they are supposed to do, the ritual that they are supposed to do before this boy. People jump into preparing for the ritual for welcoming them back, but you find that they did not do the right ritual for sending these boys there. But that problem is caused by the vacuum that was left by fathers. Whether fathers know that they have children or not is immaterial, but the fact that the father is not there when these things are done, it is frustrating to the mothers. They don't know what to do. In most cases, they end up doing the wrong things, and not intentionally, but trying to do the right thing, but the wrong way. So there is a link between the family spirituality and the process, because this is a rite of passage. This is not just something that we are doing as a nation. It is a rite of passage. Just like when the child is born, there is a ritual, the rite of passage ritual that is supposed to be done within the family for that child to be stronger, for that child to not get sick and all those things. When that transition time comes,
Mm.
that rite of passage requires the very same rituals to be done again. Just like when they come back and they welcome them, there's rituals, there's slaughtering, there's all sorts of things that are being done. So I'm putting this one on fathers. I am saying
Mm.
that without our fathers in the families, things will always go wrong.
Mm.
Mothers will be blamed, but what can they do? Because they end up finding themselves raising these boys and these girls alone, and the father is not there to do the right things. Because sometimes you find that the mother with the uncles, her brothers, they don't have a good relationship, so the brothers can't help, especially with rituals, the proper rituals, and all those things. And then the mother is now exposed, find themselves alone trying to raise. Mothers are raising spirits they don't know, because these are bloodline spirits of the fathers, and the mothers now have to grapple. That is why you find that mothers fight a lot with their boy children and all
Mm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because they are raising spirits they don't know. The
Yeah.
people who are supposed to raise those spirits are not there to. So we must start with the campaign of making sure fathers come back home and raise their children, so that the rituals can be done proper, and we can prevent all these things that are happening from happening.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the education, Mkhulu. Siyabonga kakhulu. We really need to preserve who we are, but move with the times. But I think this knowledge sharing is very important on our platform. Thank you very much for the time. Mkhulu Nobamba, a Zulu, founder of Kwa-Nobamba Family, Spiritual and Mental Wellness Institute. 11:31. Fikile Ngwati standing by with the latest sports.